Some great news has just come across my news desk here.
Yeah.
Drew Goddard is set to write and direct a new Matrix movie. And that means, of course, the Wachowskis are not going to be involved. I think Lana Wachowski wrote and directed the recent, what was it called? Matrix
Resurrections, yes.
Yeah, and that was a bit of a failure. And the thing is, there was a meta line in the movie saying, hey, Warner Brothers want you to release, this was said to Keanu Reeves, or Neo, Warner Brothers want you to release a new video game, because he was a video game producer. And yeah, they're going to release this new Matrix game with or without you. That's what Warner Brothers are going to do.
Yes.
And that was pretty unsubtle. Maybe Lana Wachowski was experiencing the same pressure from Warner Brothers, because yeah, it looks like, well, it's been a few years, time for another Matrix reboot. Like, Warner Brothers clearly wants to mine this IP.
Yes.
And that is what it seems like they're doing, right?
If they're going to be re-releasing The Matrix or making a new Matrix as a mindless content slob, you best believe I'll be plugging myself in. I won't be taking any blue pills anytime soon, because I'm a big Matrix fan.
Shouldn't it be you won't be taking any red pills?
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, you're right. Whoops. I'm a big Matrix fan. Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke, and this week we are celebrating the 50-year anniversary of the movie Blazing Saddles. So Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Blazing Saddles?
Yeah, sure thing, Michael. So Blazing Saddles is a 1974 American satirical postmodernist Western black comedy film. Wow. That's that's an interesting genre. Has anyone ever done a satirical postmodern Western black comedy film before or after?
I think this, I think it's what they call it. You could say it was a trailblazer. There we go.
Yeah, you could, I guess you could. So again, I guess it's postmodern because this film apparently articulates the themes and ideas of postmodern thought through the medium of cinema. Some of the goals of postmodernism film are to subvert the mainstream conventions of narrative structure and characterization, and to test the audience.
Well, yeah, this movie does get a little bit off the wall with the kind of meta stuff. You could argue. You could say that if you were feeling brave.
Yes, test the audience's suspension of disbelief. So, Blazing Saddles, yes, like you said, Michael, we're doing it because of its 50-year anniversary. One of the most important, noteworthy comedy movies of all time. It was inducted into the Library of Congress in 2006, by the way.
Oh, wow. You couldn't induct it into the Library of Congress today, I'll tell you that.
No, you couldn't, yes, because it was culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. This movie is directed by Mel Brooks. The screenplay is also by Mel Brooks and Norman Steinberg and Andrew Bergman and some others, and we'll get into them in a bit. It stars Cleveland Little, Gene Wilder, Slim Pickens, David Huddleston.
Sorry, I should say friend of the podcast at this point, Slim Pickens. He's been with us through thick and thin on this show.
I was going to mention him in my lit pick, and I'll get onto that in a bit. David Huddleston, Claude Ennis Starrett Jr., Mel Brooks, Harvey Korman, and Madeline Kahn, who was actually nominated for Best Supporting Actress at the Oscars. Did you know that? I bet you know.
No, they have a reference to getting a Best Supporting Actor. Win.
Yes, so yeah. But Harvey Korman was not nominated.
Jinxed it.
Madeline Kahn was. So the movie was released on February the 7th, 1974. So just over 50 years ago. And can you tell me what the budget was, Michael?
No, I cannot. So obviously the movie kind of feels like it would be pretty cheap to make because of some of the meta stuff, like the fact that I'm guessing that, it actually is just a load of cardboard cutouts, not cutouts, or cardboard, but you know what I'm saying. But I still don't really know. So I'm going to say 10 million. I don't know if that's completely off. It could be.
What was the movie we reviewed last week?
I can't even. What was the movie we reviewed last week? I know what it's. It was the Reality Bites.
What was the budget for that?
I think it was really low, wasn't it? Like
it was. I think 10 million.
Oh, was it 10 million? Okay.
So in 20 years' time.
So with inflation. So I'm guessing this is an inflation point. So let's say it was 5 million. Is that better?
Yeah. Well, it is better. I'm just saying it's considering your reference from last week. It was a massive overestimation. The budget was only 2.6 million.
Okay.
I'll let you off there.
Yeah, sometimes I probably need an inflation calculator in front of me, but in that case, yeah, I'd sort of just forgotten what the score was for that one.
Or you can just like not be dumb. How about that?
You're hurting my feelings.
What about the box office? Now, this one is
100 million.
Oh, is that your guess?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, okay. Why not? Because you gave me that reaction. Fine, 100 million.
What were you gonna go? You were gonna go lower, right?
I was gonna go lower.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I might have thought it through, but yeah, I wouldn't have gone super low because you kind of did say it was famous. And I know Mel Brooks. He does quite well for himself. Does old Mel Brooks. So I probably wouldn't have gone that low, but yeah, probably a bit lower than 100 million.
Well, yeah. This was a massive success at the box office. It was actually over 100 million.
Wow.
119.6.
Wow, that's crazy.
So sometimes movies, I guess, age well, and this has become like a classic, Blazing Saddles. But at the time, people liked it.
Yeah.
At the time,
you know what people were saying? They were saying, "Oh, you couldn't make this nowadays."
Yeah, and that's why they had to go and see it.
Yeah, yeah.
It was never going to show up in any theater ever again in America. So, Michael, did you like Blazing Saddles?
Yes. So I'll give my little joke a rest for a second. I think the movie. We can talk about the kind of that whole thing about the idea of like, is it really offensive? Would it trigger the libs, etc., etc. What I'll say is that I think the premise was really fun, and the comedy was kind of good in a like. I think the comedy feels a bit dated. It's not like it's kind of like the funny comedy, just like it's chuckle. That's what it is. It's like chuckle comedy, not like roaring with laughter. And definitely it gets a bit weird towards the end, which I feel like. That was like a thing that happened in the 1970s, because I was recently reminded of Monty Python and the Holy Grail thing. I was thinking like, yeah, that was a movie where it was like most of the comedy was just like, oh, isn't this weird? They're like banging coconuts together and pretending they're horses, things like that. So I guess that was something very much of its time. But I would say the movie was funny enough to be entertaining, and I did like the plot and the premise and the way it kind of played out. So overall, yeah, I would say I liked it.
Yeah, I think old school comedies, probably like pre-1980s, I think they have the tendency to be quite bad, because just comedy has gone a lot better. Jokes have gotten better, like tighter, etc. Like,
Yeah. Well, like, and also, like back in the day, like you got to bear in mind, it all started with some guy just like making jokes about his wife, and that's like, and then comedy just progressed from there. Like some guy just went on the radio and went like, oh, before I met my wife, I always felt incomplete. Now I'm finished.
I mean, we all know that comedy peaked in the early 2000s with Arrested Development. And so, therefore, you got to judge everything on a scale, right? So,
for you, it's like the dating system is obviously like, we have A, D, B, C. For you, it would be AD stands for Arrested Development.
Yeah, exactly. That's good.
Thank you.
So in the 1970s, a comedy from this era, you're like, oh, this is going to be pretty bad. But I think for a 1970s comedy, this does a really good job. Like, some of the jokes are actually funny. Like, and quite a few are actually funny. You know what? There are some that miss and some which aren't written well. And I was thinking, well, you could have done that better. And I was thinking of ideas, well, you could have developed that a bit more and not just, like written it down once and then just like, okay, that'll be good enough, which seems to be the case for a lot of 70s comedy. Also, not just 70s comedy, like pre-modern comedy. They don't extract enough funniness out of a situation that they could have. But this movie, I think, does a pretty good job. There's some good lines in it. It's like, I think witty is what I'd say for a lot of it. And yeah, that really helps. And yeah, I guess the tone, the vibe of the movie is just ridiculous and insincere, which helps as well. I kind of like that tone too. Like,
because there are comedies that I don't find that funny, but I still enjoy if they've kind of got that. I think I've made this distinction before, which is films that can be not necessarily funny. I mean, I do think this film is funny, but like I would agree with you, it's not like super hilarious. It's not peak comedy. But they don't have to be funny, but they can be fun.
Yeah. No, this is fun. You're right. This is fun, and also I think at times it is funny. Like, yes. And that is very good for a movie that came out in 1974. Like, that is incredible, honestly. And of course, there is some satire. Hence, the title. It's a satirical postmodernist movie. And yeah, black comedy. You gotta love black comedy. It's if it's done well, it can again be quite funny. So yeah, I think all of that. Well, it really is black comedy, isn't it?
I was gonna say black, putting the black in black comedy.
Yeah, exactly. All of that. That's really fun. And yeah, so I can definitely see why people like this movie. I think in terms of the plot, you're thinking about that. Well, it's not. It doesn't really. There's not a lot of attention paid to it.
Yeah, the plot's pretty simple.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like, nobody cares. And of course, at the end,
Yeah.
it just goes completely off the rails.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we can't really talk about that. So it's just really this movie all relies on how funny it is. And I'd say, yeah, it's pretty funny. And for
Yeah.
the 70s, it's like a masterpiece. You know, for like again, anything pre, I'd say 1980. You know, I say comedy peaked with Arrested Development. Perhaps it peaked with Frasier, that sitcom as well. You know, one of those two shows. And again, we're talking like late 90s, early
Yeah.
2000s. So yeah, like before then, like 20, 30 years before then. Oh yeah, this is really good. So yeah, let's get into the nitpicks and litpicks. How many do you have?
I don't have any lit picks or nitpicks.
Wow.
There was one nitpick I was thinking of, but I was like, nah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have a litpick, which is of course Slim Pickens.
Yes, Slim Pickens.
Yeah. The thing is, this isn't really a nitpick about Slim Pickens. It's a litpick. My apologies. It's a litpick from myself, or for myself rather, because I recognized Slim Pickens because I recognized his voice. I don't know if you did. Well, I don't know.
See, I think the issue is obviously this movie has the kind of the pre-roll credits, so I saw he was in it already.
Well, I just skipped that.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I liked the music, you know, I appreciated the music, so I was I actually can't even remember how the tune goes. He rode a blazing saddle. So I was jamming out to that, and I saw Slim Pickens, and I was like, yeah. Okay. So I couldn't claim to have like been like, oh, that's Slim Pickens, because I recognized him when I saw him, but like I knew he was going to be in it. So
yeah, I mean, there's a reason they put the credits at the end of the movies now. I just appreciated the fact that
I was just imagining, like, sorry, you know, like in what's it called, Infinity War, when like Captain America shows up in the train station, and it's like a kind of audience clapping moment. I'm just imagining that, but it's Slim Pickens in the like Mel Brooks kind of cinematic universe.
He's a legend, Slim Pickens. He's a legend because I recognized his voice right away. I was like, wait, that's the same guy.
Yeah,
and I didn't see his name in the credits. I was like, that's the same guy from that fucking movie with the bomb. What's it called?
What is it called? It's called Doctor Strangelove.
Yeah, that's what I said to myself. And then I was like, oh yeah, so this better be him, because I recognize his voice, and it was. And again, he's playing, of course, he doesn't actually play a cowboy in Doctor Strangelove, but he does play someone who wears a cowboy hat.
He's spiritually a cowboy.
That is a good way to put it, yes. He has that demeanor. And again, he's playing a cowboy here. And
he has a BCE.
Yeah, and it's great because I don't I don't know how much he like appreciated these movies that he was in, because of course he was basically told nothing to just to play it straight in Doctor Strangelove. I imagine he knew, of course, well, this was obviously more of a comedy.
Yeah, because I mean, Doctor Strangelove was that 64, so that was a full 10 years earlier.
Yes.
So maybe by this point he'd kind of adapted to the idea of realizing that his brand of very earnest Western energy was mostly going to be, that he saw the way the wind was turning, and he realized he was mostly going to be just a jokester now. Yeah,
but that's two of the best comedies from the 60s and the 70s. He's in both. That was my lit pick. I recognized him. It's like, oh, it's Slim Pickens. You gotta love Slim Pickens. So anyway, let's get into the plot of this movie, Michael. So Blazing Saddles. In order to ruin a western town, a corrupt politician appoints a black sheriff who promptly becomes his most formidable adversary.
I believe it should be pronounced adversary. Sometimes I just know you appreciate it when I help you improve your diction.
Yeah, well, is it? That's not diction, is it?
I guess it's pronunciation. Yeah. I suppose.
Yeah,
I didn't
wait.
Say
so, are you saying adversary is the American way?
I don't know if there is a. I don't know if there's one way or the other. But what I do know is that I wanted to talk about the plot. And I wanted to say, because you were like, the plot's pretty simplistic, and it's interesting because I 100% agree with you on the idea of like the sheriff's, or not the sheriff, sorry. The, what is it? He's not the governor, he's the governor.
Wow, unbelievable. You didn't even pick up any details from this movie.
Well, I remember Mel Brooks as the governor because he's got the word gov written on his back.
Yes.
But this guy, well, the thing is, the fact that I don't remember his exact role is the point, because he's like a generic bad guy who just wants to use his, I know they say several times what his role is.
Well, you can think about it, because he appoints the sheriff. Okay.
Yeah, the appointee sheriff guy.
So therefore, he's in law enforcement, and there's somebody in a state normally.
Oh yeah, the deputy attorney, is that what he's called? District attorney.
Yeah, the attorney general.
Because I know they say the DA.
Yeah, well that's for a specific district.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, so he's the attorney general.
Hence the term district attorney. But the attorney general is the Attorney General for a whole state, for instance, and I think that's his role. I think it's a very nice concept, really, if you think about it. Regardless, take the comedy out of it for a sec.
I will.
Yeah, we have a black sheriff, and this guy's appointed him to ruin this town, but he actually, is kind of foiled by him in the end. And I don't know. I think that's a nice concept for. Go on.
I also, because that's the thing. I was thinking, like, so the scheme itself, the details on that don't really matter, but the idea of, and I think, like, the way that obviously he's about to be hanged, as we do establish, he is hung, but that's a separate issue. He's about to be hanged, and basically he gets out of it because the logic is, oh well, to scare the townsfolk away, we should appoint a sheriff they'll absolutely hate, and obviously that's why he ends up being picked. And then of course it's it's kind of like a social rags to riches story, and obviously he doesn't make money, but he gains social prestige by being hated to being loved and saving the day. But yeah, I really like that premise of basically the whole point is, why is there a black sheriff in charge of this town, which is obviously going to be a time where people were pretty racist. Well, the answer is because he was specifically appointed so the people of the town would hate it because the guy wanted them to leave. Like, that's quite a clever way, I think, of setting up this situation that is inherently comedic. Well done.
And, again, with the comedy, I think in general, it works well. I mean, I wrote here, you can tell Mel Brooks is Jewish. And I don't know if that's anti-Semitic or that's pro-Semitic, honestly. But
the age-old question.
You can tell right from the beginning there's some good stuff. Like, the line, what does the governor say? Like, a giant, when he's creating this casino, like, it's a giant step forward in the treatment of the insane gambler.
Yes.
See, that's a good line. I like that. And I like when he the Attorney General presents I forgot the name of the main guy. Bart, that's it.
Bart, yes.
Bart. So he presents Bart to the governor. This is going to be the new sheriff, and then the governor takes Bart aside by mistake.
Oh yeah.
And is like, this man is in it, and then he then takes the Attorney General. And this man is a nit. Yeah. That's really clever, man. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and also, I mean, I thought it was, okay, this is actually not to do with the comedic thing, but I did think it was interesting that the, Attorney General is saying to the governor, oh, this will be good because it will actually make you seem like a trailblazer, to use that phrase again, if you appoint the first, like, black sheriff, and that could mean you'd be the president. The thing I thought was funny about that is that obviously, it's suggesting that in some place, like, people were trying to be progressive, and I thought, like, to me, I felt like that was deep with meaning. No, not really. But sometimes I always think to myself, like, when did it become socially unacceptable generally to be racist? That's something I've always thought about.
Well, I mean, maybe when this movie came out, like, this movie, honestly, we're going to get onto it in a bit, and we might as well talk about it now. But this movie, because you brought it up, but this movie does mock race, quite a bit. It, like, kind of eviscerates racist.
And can I say, you could make this nowadays, because with Trump in charge, you're not allowed to be against racism anymore.
Yeah, and, like, I don't think there had been a movie up until this point which just mocks racists, like, so explicitly. I think that is the case. That is why this movie is famous. It's a funny movie, and we haven't really talked about this point, which we're talking about now, but I guess that is significant, and I guess that's a reason to like it. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because obviously he did The Producers, and I watched The Producers. And the thing is, like, some people say, oh, that's good because it's making fun of Nazis. The thing is, it really isn't making fun of Nazis. Like, most of The Producers isn't about Nazis.
Wait, who the fuck says The Producers is making fun of Nazis? Or Nazis?
Lindsay Ellis said it.
Well, I thought the whole point is it's making fun of people who, like, it's meant to be a satire of satire, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. It's like that's the thing, like, it's not really about, like, I'm in agreement with you. It's not making fun of Nazis. But it's interesting because, of course, this movie, I think, Lindsay Ellis, massive L.
Well, let's explain the producers bit because, the fact is some producers, they get a script which is, a pro-Hitler, like, musical, and they just make it, like how it was in the script, but make it gay. Yeah. Like Hitler is now gay, and this is somehow satire because Hitler is now gay. And again, there's no deeper meaning to it, so that's why I mean it's a satire.
No, yeah, exactly.
Satire has to have a point. It can't just be, oh, look at these, horrible people. Let's, like, make them figures of ridicule.
Yeah, like in a way, like, the point of the movie is that it doesn't have a point. Because, again, it's about these kind of cynical producers who aren't really even thinking intelligently about what they're doing.
Yes.
So then I think this came shortly after the producers. He makes this movie, which, while not specifically mocking at Nazis, it is mocking quite thoroughly racism, which I think is quite a persistent Nazi tenet.
No, but the thing is, Americans see themselves differently to Nazis.
Because that's it. Well, Americans defeated the Nazis, of course. They don't get to be called Nazis.
By the way, it is pronounced Nazis, by the way, not Nazis. It is not the Narzi.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. The thing is, the Nazis are different to the Americans because, of course, Americans are like good people and Nazis weren't good people.
That's true.
The Nazis killed the Jews while Americans just kind of disliked them.
Yeah.
So there's a big
Americans fund their killing of Palestinians.
Well, yeah, nowadays, yeah. Well, yeah, but that's the thing. Back in the day, yeah, okay, that's the difference. But of course, there were some unfortunate similarities between American society and Nazis.
Yes.
But that we can put that aside. Basically, Nazis were these extreme, weird, authoritarian Germans who hated freedom and were like genocidal maniacs.
Yeah, that's true. So this goes a bit beyond kind of razzing the Nazis.
Yeah, exactly. Nazis are an easier target to make fun of because they're not like regular Americans, while this movie is like mocking regular Americans.
Yeah, like this movie is mocking actual communities that existed at the time this movie was made.
Yes, exactly. And of course it's set in 1874, but this is 10 years after Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. It's like not that far at all from, the civil rights era, and so therefore you will have people who lived in American society who thought the same as these people, of course, in this movie. And so, yeah, I think obviously we have to mention that. We were going to mention it later.
Good.
But yeah, we have to mention that, and I guess that is part of why it is significant.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess where we were all at was just the fact that they are having that conversation with the governor. But yeah, obviously, like also there's the fact that the governor's kind of like a bit of a dope. The authorities are dopes, and that's funny. Whereas like they call it in the business, they call it punching up.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, yeah, I feel like comedies, well, certainly comedies with Mel Brooks involved, do tend to mock authority figures.
You said Jew.
What?
You said Jew tend to mock.
No, I didn't.
Well, no, you said Jew first, then you went Jew. You went like that. Jew.
Well, I think maybe you just like hearing that word. So that makes sense that, again, authority figures are mocked. And yeah, again, that's enjoyable. I like seeing that. So yeah, again, the movie is quite funny. The tone, the vibe of the movie is funny. You can have a fun time. And yeah, the actual, I guess, people that it's mocking in the movie, are right to be mocked. And again, this hadn't really happened before, I think. I hope I'm right. I've heard people say this, and it makes sense why this movie is, heralded. And so yeah, I think that's the case. So yeah, there's plenty of reasons to like this movie. So let's, I guess, get into it. Well, actually, first, let's talk about the development of this movie, Michael. So the idea came from a story outline written by Andrew Bergman that he intended to develop and produce himself. He wrote a first draft called Tex X, a play on Malcolm X's name. He said Alan Arkin was hired to direct, and James Earl Jones was going to play the sheriff.
Well, that would be that. He isn't. I don't know. That wouldn't work.
Yeah,
he's too classically authoritative.
Yeah, I'm going to praise Cleveland Little later on because I think he's like perfect casting. Yeah. And yeah, I don't think
that also used to be Malcolm X's old surname. So isn't that a coincidence?
Yeah,
it's called Malcolm Little.
Well, obviously, yeah, if that was his last name.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I think it was good that James Earl Jones didn't play the sheriff. That wouldn't have worked. Mel Brooks was taken with the story, which he described as hip talk, 1974 talk, and expressions happening in 1874 in the Old West, and purchased the film rights from Bergman. He hired a group of writers, like Bergman, to expand the outline and posted a large sign, "Please do not write a polite script." That's what he said. And I think there's a line in the movie where I think the priest says, they've raped the cows.
Yes.
Which I found very funny. Again, that's a funny line. They've not raped the women and stolen. They've raped the cows.
Yes, and they've rustled the women. This movie, they have a lot of jokes about rape, which is kind of funny because I feel like in a way, like that's something which possibly people are more sensitive about now. Like people, I guess, when they do the whole "you could make this movie nowadays," which again we'll talk about in more detail. I feel like they're often talking about the race thing
a bit now.
Okay, yeah, but I was going to say, I kind of think if there's anything that you wouldn't see as much nowadays, they have like several jokes about rape. Like there's a joke where it's like, you said rape twice. Like, I like rape, which is a fine joke. But I feel like everyone now, I'm not saying this in like I'm saying this in a morally neutral way, but everyone now, I think is a little bit like, oh, rape, you know, you can't mention rape anymore.
Honestly, I have thought about that. It's like, for some reason, like rape is worse than killing in society, or just making jokes about it.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking, like if the book was titled "To Rape a Mockingbird," that would
it wouldn't be considered a classic.
That would sound so much worse.
Yeah, well, I know that what's his name? David Mitchell has like a whole thing about like the phrase rape and pillage. Whereas like he's like saying that like he's like saying that rape and pillage basically, it's not the same joke as yours, basically saying that like the phrase rape and pillage sounds like something people like casually say, like, you know, like, oh, the Vikings raped and pillaged their way, whereas, which is weird because if you just said the Vikings raped their way across, that would sound like worse. So he's like, why is it that pillaging makes it sound better?
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, I guess it is different. I just don't want to be accused of being a hack.
Yeah, you don't want to step on any toes here.
No, I did think of that to rape a mockingbird.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I don't think that would win a Pulitzer Prize. Freaking hell. But so yeah, I guess yes, that is one of the. It's a very blue film, as I think John Wayne put it. And yeah, so it goes to those places, and of course, I think one of the other aspects is there are racial slurs which are just said freely, and not just the N word, like they say the C word, which we can't say on this podcast. You know, because that would be inappropriate.
Right, I can't. Oh yeah, the Chinese people, yes.
Yes, exactly, yes. And so yes, racial slurs are kind of said like normally, and it's like kind of, you know, just casually, and nowadays perhaps a better emphasis would be put on that, you know, or sorry, a bigger emphasis would be put on that.
Yeah, but again, it's kind of interesting because I was like thinking about, so like obviously there's one famous guy who's working now who loves to pepper N-words into his script, so you definitely can't claim that you couldn't have that.
No, that's different though, because Tarantino's movies aren't comedies. Well, of course they've got a comedic element. This is just a straight. This is just a straight comedy. So in a straight comedy, you're just hearing racial slurs again and again. Like, would that be too sharp a contrast? Like a nice fun time, and it's racial slur after racial slur, and you know, talking about raping. And I guess that's where people, you know, that's why people say this couldn't be made today. It's because the language is just quite coarse. And potentially, yeah, like imagine if you were watching this and, for instance, well, maybe if you were black, but of course the whole point is about racism against black people, you know, that's the central point of the movie. So imagine if you were like Chinese and watching this and just casually hearing them say that slur.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't know, how would you feel about it? Because obviously, like, the people saying it are meant to be stupid, but it's like, oh yeah, you know, just casually throwing out these racial slurs in what should be a fun, feel-good, you know, movie. Well, that's what comedies are meant to be, of course, most of the time. Yeah. And so I get that contrast. It's a bit, you know, the contrast is a bit sharp. So maybe the slurs would be toned down a bit. But the central premise of the movie, of course, you know, it works. I mean, it works today. Well, when I say it works today, like that formula of mocking racists is so common.
Yeah, I think like if there was a area where I could imagine people might say, oh, you know, I don't like that, whatever, or there could be some contention around it, it would be the idea that the kind of racism is maybe played as a bit, it's just funny that they're being racist. And obviously, like, if you're somebody who's experienced that racism in a much more...
Is it ever played like specifically like that though?
Well, okay, so I suppose it's funny that they're stupid, I guess, but like you could argue like it may be, I suppose the thing is it presents racism as kind of harmless. I think someone could say that.
I don't think it does, no. I think anybody who says that is stupid. It doesn't present racism as harmless. I think the issue is that people may have it. It's like so explicit in its racism. Like it's one thing to have characters that are racist, but saying like racist slurs, you know, that's I think again, I think you can keep the tone, you can keep the vibe, you can keep the characters. And that would work today. Again, that has been replicated across so many, you know, TV shows.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, making fun of racists is like so common now. But yeah,
it's blasé.
It is. It literally is blasé. Yeah. But of course, you know, the slurs. Well, you might want to tone that down a bit. You know. Yeah. I think that would maybe be the only thing that couldn't fly today. Yeah.
Although also, actually, while we're on the subject of slurs, and it's good because it's one of the funny jokes, like the joke that I thought was, I don't know, like I thought it was worthy of pointing out as a highlight just because it kind of made me laugh, is one where it's explicitly that they don't say the N-word because, just to kind of progress forward our discussion a bit, when he's riding into town, Bart, and the guy's looking out for him, and he sees him and he says, "It's an," and then, or like, "The sheriff's an," and then they are ringing the church bell, so you don't hear what he says, and like, "Oh, he's saying the sheriff's near." I mean, it's kind of like a quite typical joke where it's like, there's some noise that stops a whole message being heard.
That would be fine today.
No, yeah, exactly. That would pass in the comedy halls of today.
Well, that's the thing. In terms of like the comedy rules of today, yeah, like, you just can't go so far. But again, I'm just talking about.
But again, the thing is, obviously he's like specifically not saying the N word.
Yes.
So I think you could get away with that.
Well, yeah, obviously, yeah. But that's the thing. It's just a contrast from the literal slurs which you hear, which aren't meant to be used in an offensive way by the filmmakers, but it's just like the fact that they're in the movie at all, and. The whole point of, it couldn't be made today. Yes, it could. Those elements just need to be toned down. But again, I think the people who say it couldn't be made today are perhaps the people who like don't get the message the most.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing, because I was thinking to myself, like, in a way, like, if there's some sense in which this movie sort of couldn't be made today, it's because a lot of more conservative people, who are the people who say, would kind of be like, hold on a minute, this is a movie, like, if they did get the message, because that's kind of question, it's like, do they get the message, or, because, based on what I get what you're saying, but if they did get the message, they'd be like, hold on a minute, this is, some SJW movie about a black guy who's awesome, and he, like, shows all the racist townspeople that they're wrong. Like, they might actually think, oh, that's, liberal politics being pushed into my movie.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the ironic thing of, like, could this be made today? Well, in some ways, superficially you could say no because of the slurs, but like if you actually analyze it and watch it, no, it could be made today. And in fact, the people who would dislike it the most if it came out today are the people saying this movie couldn't be made today. So that's the irony, I believe, is what they say. That's the irony of the whole discourse around Blazing Saddles. So let's get into the writing a bit more. So would it be surprising if I told you, Michael, that Mel Brooks described the writing process as chaotic, and it was written in the middle of a drunken fistfight? Oh, sorry, it was more or less. Right?
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah. It was likened to a drunken fistfight.
Yes, and basically everybody wanted their ideas to be put in the movie, but Mel Brooks was the loudest, and he was the director.
That will help.
Yeah, and Bergman remembers the room being just as chaotic and said it was a riot. It was a rioter's room instead of a rioters room.
That should have made it in the last draft, the final draft.
I know. So again, Blazing Saddles is considered a classic, but at the time it wasn't so much. And again, I think it's aged quite well. Again, and I think the foundation for a lot of what you see in modern comedy is in this movie. So Blazing Saddles, is considered a classic. This is from Wikipedia, but critical reaction was mixed upon its release. Vincent Canby wrote, "Blazing Saddles has no dominant personality, and it looks as if it includes every gag thought up in every story conference." Wow. Yeah, I think that's kind of true. There's a lot of gags in this movie. Some hit, some don't. But
yeah, that's it. They do. There's a bit of a throw everything at the wall element.
But I think most do hit, actually. Most actually do hit. So I guess that's it's good that they threw as many in as they can. They're not going for a great movie. It's just making you laugh. So I guess the more gags you can throw in, the more chance you can get somebody to laugh. Whether good, bad, or mild, nothing was thrown out. Woody Allen's comedy, though very much a product of our age of analysis, recalls the wonder and discipline of people like Keaton and Laurel and Hardy. But Mr. Brooks' sights are lower. His brashness is rare, but his use of anachronism and his anarchy recalls not the great film comedies of the past, but the middling ones. With his talent, he should do much better than that. So again, I think this critic is Vincent Canby is contrasting it to Woody Allen movies and Buster Keaton, Lauren and Hardy.
No, Woody Allen movies, those have aged well.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. That style of comedy is like I don't know, like ha ha ha. Oh, that's really
how droll.
Yes, exactly. Oh, how droll. Yeah. That is not, better. That I'm sorry, it's comedy is like the most subjective thing ever. It honestly is, because I think people who love highbrow movies can really enjoy Jackass, for instance.
Yes,
which is not highbrow. Yeah. But it's so you can't say one. It's about what makes you laugh in general, and I do like comedies that are, I guess. I don't think this is, I guess it is particularly anarchic, particularly at the end. Yes, anarchy is definitely the right term. But yeah.
Well, I know that you complained once about, I believe you called it British nonsense, with reference to the movie Cats. I was wondering whether or not...
It's not a comedy.
Yeah, it's not a comedy, I was wondering whether or not that extended to a general aversion to kind of absurdist comedies.
Well, no.
To absurdist films in general.
Well, I don't know, absurdist films and comedies are kind of different. So yeah, but I do like absurdist movies, or I do like absurdist comedy. I think that is, that is inherently funny. Well, it's the funniest thing to me. And so when this critic Canby talks about the brashness of something like Blazing Saddles, I'm like, yeah, that's good. It's good that it's brash. That I think that because I'm sure, like everyone, we've all seen like so many comedies or so many sitcoms, etc. Throughout our lives.
Yeah.
And so what really makes you laugh is like absurdist storylines which you could never imagine.
Well, yeah, because you got to be surprised. That's it.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
when something's predictable, that's not funny.
Yeah, no, that is true. And so the best way to be surprised, I guess, is with this kind of comedy, which is inherently absurd. So yeah, I disagree with this critic. Again, he has an opinion that there are some good. There is a certain level of comedy which should be aimed at, but no, that's not the case at all. Definitely not with comedy. Yeah, that's. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's
yeah, I do agree. I think the idea that there's I remember hearing there was some comedian talking about the idea of a cheap laugh, and he was saying there's no such thing as a cheap laugh. You either make people laugh or you don't. And I kind of agree with that too. Like if you make somebody laugh through something that's stupid or silly, it's still a laugh. You make someone, and then you can have the most intelligently written joke ever that sounds real fancy, but if it doesn't make you laugh, it doesn't make you laugh.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Or laugh.
Yeah. So let's talk about the script now, Michael. So in 1874, a new railroad will be rerouted through the town of Rock Ridge. Wow, that's a lot of R's in a row, isn't it?
Railroad rerouted through Rock Ridge. Yeah, you're right.
To avoid quicksand. Realizing this will make Rock Ridge worth millions. Attorney General Hedley Lamar, and I don't know who does his name sound like? It says on Wikipedia this I think modern day actress, I think.
Oh.
Also modern day. One that was alive in
contemporary actress.
Yeah, one that was alive in 1974. Yes, I think yeah, so the film star Hedy Lamarr sued Warner Brothers for $100,000.
That's funny.
Charging that the film's running parody of her name infringed on her right to privacy. Brooks said he was flattered and chose not to fight in court. The studio settled out of court and issued a small sum and an apology for almost using her name. Brooks said that Lamarr never got the joke. Again, yes, she didn't.
No, that's why she couldn't be in the movie.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, again, it's kind of funny, but yeah. Hedy Lamarr plans to force Rockbridge's residents out and sends a gang of thugs led by his flunky Taggart to trash the town.
I like the word flunky.
Yeah, I know. Good word from Wikipedia. So yeah, I think part of why this movie is good, perhaps, and I'm just going to throw this out there. Of course, I like that gasp. Westerns are, obviously were a popular genre in America,
yes.
Particularly around this time. And this movie kind of, I don't know, demystifies the West a bit. Kind of mocks the West and
there are a few just on the same note. There are a few references. I think there's two to specific Western stars. One's called something Dix, and the other one's called something else. And I did look them up because I was interested, but I didn't find anything about them. I think literally the joke is just they're prominent Western stars, but I'd never heard of them. Should have mentioned Clint Eastwood or something, you amateur. But yeah, that was just my thought on the fact Westerns were big then.
Yeah, well, Westerns are big, and this movie does mock the Old West somewhat. Almost as good as Seth MacFarlane's A Million Ways to Die in the West.
Almost.
Yeah, almost as good as that. So yeah, again, Westerns were a popular genre. This movie takes aim at, I say it takes aim at the Western. Not really, but kind of. I think the reason why it was a Western is because, it's set in 1874. You've got the whole, I guess you wanted to, the guy who wrote it, Bergman, wanted to create a premise of, what if a black guy takes over a town, and becomes the sheriff? This was the best place to set it in, the Old West. And so yeah, but I don't know. I'm asking you, Michael. Do you think this movie, because it takes aim at racists, does it
satirize the West?
Yes, or Western movies,
I think it doesn't really.
Okay.
I would say, if anything, so for example, it satirizes one aspect of the kind of production process. I think you could argue the kind of meta thing about the obviously fake town they build, which is, I assume, probably what they did in Westerns at the time, just built fake towns. But that's not really I don't think that's really a satire of Westerns themselves. So no, yeah, I think while there's probably small stuff you can point to, I would not say this movie really functions as a parody of a Western movie.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I agree. I was just throwing it out there because I was interested. I want to hear your perspective.
Yes, I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to express my opinion.
Because I was on the fence. Maybe it demystifies the West. Well, it certainly does, but is it a specific intention of the movie? Perhaps not. Lamar persuades the dimwitted governor to appoint Bart, a black worker, railroad worker, about to be executed for assaulting Taggart. Yeah, I love the governor character. He may be the best character in the movie, honestly.
He's got a good energy.
Yeah, I think so. Again, like he's this stupid politician who.
Yeah, and he's got a hot secretary.
Oh yes,
something for the fellas.
Yeah. So a black sheriff, Lamar reasons, will offend the townspeople, creates chaos, and leave Rockridge at his mercy. Again, when he arrives, again, it's a really good scene. This is one of the scenes I liked. Some really tight, witty comedy. He does get a frosty reception, of course, to say the least. And the welcome sheriff sign being rolled up. Yeah. That's a really good move, and then he rolls it back. I was like, oh wow, this is good. I like this. This is some
it
good
shows
gags.
he's not going to take no guff.
Yes. Yeah, and of course, someone like scream, or everyone screams when he reaches into his jeans to pull out.
I like that. Yeah.
Like that, and this is when I put in my notes, like, is this movie woke for making fun of racists? Like,
yes.
Yeah, like honestly, today. Like that whole town could be like a bunch of blue tick people on Twitter, Again, and these are the kind of people that love to say movies are too woke nowadays. But again, they don't understand it, because I don't think they would agree with the message here, I think they would. They only put up with things like Blazing Saddles, or maybe pretend to like it, or maybe don't get the meaning of it at all, because maybe it would be really weird to hate a movie from 1974. It would look,
that is it. Yeah,
it would look pathetic. I don't know what you feel about that.
No, I kind of agree with you that I think your way of putting it, that they are kind of just pretending to like the movie, is interesting, and I suspect kind of accurate. I also think, I don't know, like I one of the things about conservative concern around like offense and all that kind of stuff is that, as I think many people have pointed out, they then get incredibly offended by anything that slightly. So like I was recently talking in a very different context about Bill Burr, and how like conservatives used to be like, oh, Bill Burr's great because he like makes jokes about how women are stupid and stuff sometimes. But then during like the COVID thing, Bill Burr started making fun of a lot of like the anti-vaxxers who like think they're really. He was like making fun of them, like, oh yeah, you're so cool not wearing a mask. You're so manly with your exposed airways. Just like making a joke about how silly it is to act as if you're like a really cool rebel for not wearing a mask. And so many conservatives who like Bill Burr because sometimes he says offensive stuff, and his comedy can be a little bit abrasive. Suddenly we're like, he's sold out. He's terrible. And it's like funny because they never really appreciated his abrasive comedy in the first place. If when he starts turning that comedy on kind of, COVID people. COVID. I didn't know. I was going to say like COVID deniers, which I guess let's just accept that as a broad term, like COVID deniers. They're like, oh, how could you? So yeah, I think there's a lot of the conservative, like, oh, the left is offended. I think it's very disingenuous because, of course, they do get offended by a lot of stuff.
Is it disingenuous? Yeah. Yes. Honestly, like, just because I'm on Twitter sometimes and I see, because again, it's all about the algorithm and,
like, I don't know about you, but like I'm getting maybe this is, I don't know if this is what you're about to say, but I feel like I see way more stuff on Twitter, like since Elon Musk took over, that seems to be specifically designed to make me mad. I see way more stuff I disagree with now on Twitter.
Yeah. I think, I just like in the For You tab, if you ever scroll that, you get some random takes. And again, they are sometimes, they're crazy sometimes, but sometimes they're like conservatives who just don't understand stuff. And it doesn't happen a lot, but I just remember it sometimes. Like they're talking about a film, and it's just like, what? No, you don't. No, you don't get it. Like you've just completely missed the point. You've taken the wrong message from that, and it's just very frustrating. It is. I mentioned, him walking into the town, and all the people who were scared of, Bart, the new sheriff, is, these people could be compared to blue tick people on Twitter, and I think it isn't that far off, really, considering some of the shit I see on that app.
It is funny that the meaning of being a blue tick on Twitter has completely changed.
Yeah, I know it is. It is quite funny, but yeah, I never would have been this cynical about, I guess, right wingers or conservatives if Elon Musk didn't. Every time I scroll up my For You, I get like tweets from these people. So there you go. Anyway, let's talk about the casting of the sheriff now. So Richard Pryor was Brooks' original choice to play Sheriff Bart, but the studio, claiming his history of drug arrests made him uninsurable, refused to approve financing with Pryor as the star, and so the role of Sheriff Bart went to Cleveland Little, and prior just remained as a screenwriter. So there you go. If you're offended by the N words, well, one of the screenwriters was a black person.
There we go. Nailed it.
There you go. No, that's the thing. I think Cleveland Little, he does a great job, and I think he fits the role really well. I can't imagine anyone else in this role, honestly.
Yeah. I think like he's got you know what I was thinking? I was imagining someone who would be funny in it now is what's his name? Daniel Kaluuya. Just because I feel like he's got that comedy face, which I guess is like he's got that face where you can imagine him kind of like looking into the camera and be like, "You seeing this?" Anyway, actually, while I'm at it, and this could have been a lit pick, I liked when he said, "Where the white women at?"
I was going to get onto that later, but
yeah. Like I think it's really good because he's like very cool, and I think that's another thing with this movie. You could say like, well, isn't it almost kind of cucked and undignified that the movie's about like this guy who goes to this really racist town, and instead of being like instead of the town really getting their comeuppance or anything like that, he basically is just constantly kind of turning the other cheek, if you will, and he's helping them anyway. And so I might say, you know, you kind of have a movie about like a bunch of racists where the black guy's just smiling and being nice to them, and then they only end up accepting them because despite them being constantly racist to him, he still helps them. But I think at least that's mitigated by the fact that he's so cool and like swaggy that you're just like, he's above it. Like he kind of has that vibe, which I think really works.
Exactly, that is the correct.
Like it's not like fucking Morgan Freeman in Driving Miss Daisy, where it's like she's just being racist to him, and he's just like, sure thing. I'm not going to do the voice or anything. It's just right, but sure thing, man. That's fine. You know, you're being racist to me, but I'm just a friendly old Morgan Freeman. Like it doesn't work.
Sure thing, ma'am. That's fine. You can call me the N-word any day. I don't mind. Right, yeah. So the thing is, you are right. The exact correct phrase is above it all. That's how he seems. So it's like he doesn't really care about the town that much. Oh, well, I guess he cares about the town somewhat at the end. I think it's to fuck over like the bad guys in the movie. But yeah, he's just like kind of above it all, you know. And obviously he's sheriff, and it's better him being sheriff rather than being a fucking railroad worker, you know.
That is true.
Upward
mobility.
Yeah, I guess he'll take that. So yeah, Bart relies on his wits and the assistance of Jim, an alcoholic gunslinger known as the Waco Kid, to overcome the townspeople hostility. I like now the term Waco has a different meaning.
Yeah, I was thinking that,
yeah. The Waco Kid. Oh, you mean the ones that were murdered by the FBI?
Yeah.
No. The scenes, I think, with Gene Wilder and Cleveland Little are great. Like, that's one of the key things about this movie, which we haven't mentioned yet, which makes it a classic, which makes it, really fun, and, it has a good vibe, because these two actors have great chemistry together. And yeah, right from the first line, well, what do you like? I like chess and I like screwing.
Let's play chess.
Yeah, let's play chess. Again, that's another quick, it's another witty line. Very clever. Mel Brooks offered the other leading role, the Waco Kid, not to Gene Wilder, but to another person who was a famous cowboy back in the day.
Slim Pickens. Clint Eastwood.
No, who also was meant to be in Dr. Strangelove.
John Wayne.
Yes. John Wayne. So that's the second time that John Wayne could have been in a movie basically mocking cowboys, or mocking this attitude of the Old West. And both times he declined. But I think he declined maybe the Doctor Strangelove role because it was maybe too much of a commie movie,
Yeah.
American should...
It's not about killing people.
Yeah, America should be able to drop a bomb on whoever they want and kill anyone. That's the American way. But yeah, he deemed this movie too blue for his family-oriented image of killing Native Americans.
Yeah. Killing, yes.
Yes. Genociding Native Americans is what the average American household loved to watch on a Sunday afternoon. Yes, so this movie just wouldn't do for John Wayne. But yeah, he assured Brooks that he would be the first one in line to see it. So there you go.
Okay, good. That's character development.
He's a secret lib, is John Wayne.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, maybe he is, like, he was just, like, he wasn't actually his characters, Again, I don't know anything about John Wayne. But,
yeah, I know he played Genghis Khan.
Yes, good point.
I want to watch that movie at some point.
Yeah. So, of course, Bart walks outside, and an old woman says, "Up yours," and we're like,
yes.
That is funny. And again, I can understand why people may be like, maybe not today. You could have a comedy like that. But again, the whole point is like the townspeople are like irredeemably racist.
Yeah, well, like I know, like Gene Wilder has a comment about like like he says all these things about
I was just going to mention that.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yes, good. I'm glad we're in agreement.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you're not going to continue. Yeah.
Oh, but I was just going to say, since you're going to mention it, you can now elaborate on it.
All right. Okay. Well, after that woman says that line, Gene Wilder gives. I think it is iconic, honestly. the iconic improv line, which we haven't mentioned so far.
Oh, it was improv, eh?
Yeah, you didn't know it was improv.
I didn't know it was improv, actually.
The ending line was improv. So he says, these are people of the land.
Yes.
The common clay of the New West. Morons.
Yes.
And that morons, I believe was ad-libbed. I believe was improv. So yeah, and it's a woke line, honestly. That's the thing. We should have perhaps mentioned that line when talking about this movie making fun of racists, because again, that right there is basically saying, oh yeah, all these racist people, like the average white person in the West, I guess, and by extension perhaps America, is just, a racist moron. And
nowadays you'd be saying that about the MAGA hats.
Exactly. There are parallels there. And maybe, the Democrats shouldn't have been so explicit about this, but basically there was this narrative like, oh, if you vote for Trump, you're a moron. And it's like, well, yeah, it's bad politics to say that, but at the same time, yes, I could, I don't know how you could listen to
I know this isn't politically correct to say.
Yes.
But.
Yeah. Have you listened to him speak for 10 seconds? Yes. I mean, the average American, and I think probably the average person, honestly, they're not too smart, honestly. And
yes.
Yeah, again, it's elitist. That is elitist, but it's also true. It can be both at the same time. Yes. Anyway, and I think that's why that line from Gene Wilder was so good, because it was so unexpected. It's just he lays it out, and it's said so succinctly by him, the common clay of the New West, people of the land, morons. Yeah. Just all these euphemisms middle America, for instance, is one today.
Yes.
Yeah. What do middle Americans think? What do morons?
More like mid-wit America.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. What are these morons who don't really pay attention to anything, who have a very limited understanding of the world, think about this important issue? And again, it's the same in every country. It's not just America, I think. That would be my guess. But yeah, that's why that line is quite good. Anyway, Bart subdues, of course, Mongo. Did you like Mongo, Michael?
Yeah, he was pretty good. I mean, like a generic dumb character.
Do you not think he would be offensive?
Oh, I see. Oh, because of his name and I suppose that's a legitimate point. But I didn't care. That's a very serious concern. You're right, but I ignored it. Yeah,
well, that's the thing. Again, you could have the same character today, just don't call him Mongo.
There's a really stupid Norm Macdonald joke where he's like, I think my doctor might be retarded. His name is Dr. Retardo, which is such a stupid joke, and I don't even know what it means. But yeah, so you can just have a Dr. Retardo in there.
Yeah, exactly. He's this strong and dim-witted, yet philosophical henchman. Sent to kill this guy, Bart. And I like the line about Bart inventing the candygram. But they probably won't give me credit for inventing it. That's what he says, and that's clever.
Yes.
Yeah, that's another good line I caught.
Yeah.
Mongo is obviously only a pawn in life. I like that line. Then of course Bart outwits the German seductress. In fact, she falls in love with him. And the thing is that performance from what she called Lily von Stupp, it goes on for a while. Yeah. And I know Mel Brooks likes songs in his movies, I think.
Yeah, he does like a good old musical.
So do you think that's why this was in the movie?
I think I also think he likes them for filler. I think he's kind of got that, in a way, he was almost a proto-Seth MacFarlane. Because Seth MacFarlane, obviously you can cynically say that he includes random show tunes in his episodes of Family Guy, just for filler. But it also comes to the fact I think he does like that format for having songs. So I think it's a similar thing here.
So he can't be cynical if he likes it,
You're right.
Yeah, and you know what? I enjoyed Shapoopy from Family Guy. I enjoyed that scene. That's fun. Bart and Jim visit the railroad and discover from Bart's best friend Charlie that the railway is planned to go through Rock Ridge. Taggart and his men arrive to kill Bart, but Jim outshoots them and forces their retreat. Is Waco Jim a white savior character, Michael?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think so. Let's say he's fine.
I'd love somebody with a big following to put that in the discourse on Twitter.
No,
that's an angle of discourse regarding Blazing Saddles that hasn't been,
I can't be bothered with that. Let's not get into that.
Is Waco Jim a white savior? This actually, Blazing Saddles is problematic. Not because of its Gene Wilder with the fast attack, but it's interesting. Why does this character? I was perhaps waiting for a scene where Gene Wilder and of course Cleveland Little, or their characters, discuss why this guy, the Waco Kid, is like the only non-racist who exists. And I don't know, man. Like the thing is, it works for the the comedy, it works for the vibe of the movie, so it doesn't really need to be explained. But no,
it never does.
No, that's never explained. Lamar, furious that his schemes have backfired, recruits an army of thugs, including criminals, motorcycle gangsters, Ku Klux Klansmen, Nazis, and Methodists. Mel Brooks appears in the recruiting line as an aviator and director, a nod to Howard Hughes. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So I think Harvey Korman delivering that line is wonderful, where he says all that.
What, like where the white women at?
No, Harvey.
Sorry, Harvey Korman. Sorry, he wasn't even close. Because that guy's name's completely different. Yeah. Like he's kind of just lists off.
And Methodists. Yeah, like he rattles them all off and goes and Method. Yeah, it's great. That was he should have got best supporting actor.
I also think like if you've got that kind of like evil but kind of like posh villain vibe, it's always good to have them list off a load of orders.
Yes.
Like I went this. I don't know. I'm doing like his voice weird, but like. Just, I think it's good. Like, it was always good to have a scene where the guy in charge is giving a list of orders to his henchmen.
Yeah. He does it very well. And of course, this is the line you mentioned, another great line. The KKK guys getting distracted by Bart saying, "Where the white women at?" And before I saw this movie, I had heard that line. I didn't realize it came from Blazing Saddles.
I didn't either, no, yeah.
Yeah, hats off to them. That was great. And then also, head them off at the pass. I hate that cliche, and then he shoots.
Yes. Yeah, that's probably the only like real parody of a Western moment, I think.
Yeah, and like, it's called out, and I like that because I've heard that term, head them up at the pass, and yeah, I hate that cliche. Yeah, there's some good, like, for a 1970s comedy, there's some really good writing here. I think it's funny, and it's quite, I don't know, I won't describe it as fast paced. The movie is only 1 hour and a half long. It's only 1 minute 30.
Yeah.
It's not long at all, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like that fast paced. I don't know. But
I think it's like obviously it has filler in it. I think a lot of a lot of Mel Brooks' movies aren't that overindulgent. I don't think any of them like have a particularly long. I think almost all of them come in at just feature length, and I think that is good because, especially, I think also with the movies being so absurd. Like I don't think you'd want to see a huge amount of them. But yeah, I agree with you. I think like in terms of the pacing, I think it's fine. I don't think there's anything you can really criticize about it. Yeah, I liked it, especially that bit in the middle where it stops for a whole show tune.
Yeah. So east of Rockridge, Bart introduces the townspeople to the black, Chinese, and Irish workers who have all agreed to help them in exchange for acceptance by them.
Yes.
And again, we have that line from one of the townspeople. Okay, we'll take the N-word and the C-word, but we won't take the Irish.
Yes.
Again, that's one of the lines I was like, wow, that's very explicit in the slurs. And again, I guess the joke is like, they'll accept the everybody but the Irish, because even though the Irish are basically white, they're still so different to white Americans somehow, some way. I guess that's the joke. But yeah, I guess it is funny, but again, it's quite explicit with the slurs. So then of course they build a fake town. I think it's kind of a fun idea. Like, who really cares about the plot at this stage, Michael? That's what I was thinking. Like, oh, we've got the conclusion to the movie. How are they going to foil the bad guys? Or they're going to build a fake town. Yeah, it's kind of okay. But basically, whatever they did to foil the bad guys, it would have been fine because this movie is so absurd, right?
I was also thinking it's interesting in this movie they do avoid having people be killed. Like there's, I guess, implied death with the dynamite, but you never actually see anyone die. And obviously, because when we're talking about like Waco the Kid, I thought it was funny they have this guy's like the fastest shot in the world, but he doesn't ever shoot at, like he shoots their guns out of their hand and stuff. So it's kind of funny because John Wayne was like, oh, this, like, you made that joke about like you can shoot, like, have a movie where you shoot loads of people and that's perfectly fine family values.
Yeah.
But this movie, no, and in this movie, no one dies, basically.
Yeah, I think that was he didn't kill those people because they needed to be in the movie at the end.
No, yeah.
So I think that's really why it was done.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I agree with you that the ultimate like conclusion didn't matter. But I suppose if there was one benefit, it would have been that the conclusion would be silly, and I think it's a perfectly fine silly conclusion.
Yes, it's fine. Yes, we'll take it. Yeah. Also, there's this toll booth which is constructed. The Governor William J. Petermain Thruway, forcing the raiding party to send for change to pay the toll. I don't know. I found that funny, that bit. I think the directing could have been a bit better because fucking Slim Pickens says the name of the toll booth and then it cuts to the name. He should have said it as it cuts. You know what I mean?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. That
waste of time.
Yeah. Well, it's not a waste of time. It's just better comedic execution.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that bit was quite funny. So the resulting brawl between townsfolk, workers, and Lamar's thugs literally breaks the fourth wall, and they burst onto a neighbouring movie set where director Buddy Bazaar is filming a Busby Berkeley-style Top Hat and Tails musical number. The brawl then spreads into the studio's commissionary for a food fight and spills out of the Warner Brothers film lot onto the streets of Burbank. I guess the fourth wall breaking isn't needed. That's what I put. It's like it's quite a weird direction for the movie to go to because it has been like a weird absurdist movie, but this really takes it to another level.
It goes crazy.
Yeah, but it is an absurd film, so I guess that's it's not completely out of the realm of what you'd expect. I don't know how I feel about the end. I suppose I did like the scene where they burst into the the musical because all the fucking the dancers are very gay, and that's what's funny about it.
Yes, yeah, it is funny. Again, also it means we've got to get another show tune out of it, which I appreciated.
Yeah. I like when one of them says, "Come on, girls," because they're gay. Yeah, they're all gay. And again, I think
gay people being gay is funny.
It is.
I know it's not politically correct to say, but
it's post-ironically funny.
Yes.
I think the F slur is uttered in that scene as well.
Oh really? No.
Yeah. Couldn't make it today.
Yeah, I'm beginning to think you couldn't make this movie today. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Just cut out the superficial stuff. And keep the core of it. So Lamar realizes he has been beaten. He hails a taxi and orders the cabbie to drive him off this picture. It's very meta. That's the thing what I think about the end of this movie. It's just like the writers being like, oh yeah, we should do this, do that.
Like they kind of like it gets right. Like the thing is, there's no real logic to it being meta.
Yeah. What if we just went crazy at the end, and then normally I think the studios would rein it in at the end because it's like, wait, this has gone off completely in a weird direction. Were you taking drugs while you were writing this at the end? But again, back in the 70s, the studios didn't have that much power compared to today. I think they have more control over movies today and beforehand. I think there was this golden period in the 70s where crazy movies were made, and this isn't that crazy, but the ending is kind of crazy, where you could just get away with a lot of things, and maybe this is an example of that in the ending. I don't know what you think about that.
I think that makes sense, and I think this movie's about seeing what you can get away with in some sense, and they were just like, let's just turn that into even just the universe of the movie itself.
Yeah, so Lamar, of course, goes to see Blazing Saddles, and as he settles into his seat, he sees Bart arriving on horseback outside the theatre. Bart blocks Lamar's escape and shoots him. Bart and Jim then enter the theatre to watch the end of the film, in which Bart announces to the townspeople that he's moving on because his work is done and because he is bored. I like that ending. Again, it's just like the perfect ending as well. And then riding out of town, he finds Jim still eating popcorn and invites him along to Nowhere Special, which I think has become maybe a famous line. Like, Nowhere Special, that sounds good.
Yeah,
and the two... Oh, you're not sure about that?
I don't know if I've heard that frequently.
Okay, fine. Sorry. Maybe you're just not as worldly as me.
Yeah, maybe I haven't. Yeah, I might not be up to date on my Blazing Saddles memes.
Yes, exactly. The two friends ride into the desert before dismounting and boarding a limousine, which drives off into the sunset. Again, it's just like kind of absurdist and meta for the sake of it. I'm not sure if it's really meta. It's just like, instead of you'd expect them to ride out into a horseback, but no, they do it in a limousine. Well, again, I think just it's the writers maybe just going a bit too far at the end, and so it's not like it's bad, but it just I don't think is as funny as the rest of the movie, perhaps, with what they do at the end by making it so like modern and meta, I guess, in some respects. But anyway, Michael, it's time to conclude. You go first.
Yeah. So I think we've pretty much covered everything. The main thing is, like we kind of said, it's not super funny. Having said that, there's a point at which, how funny is anything really? Like I think you said before, there are not that many comedies that just have you really laughing loads throughout. But this movie is definitely fun, and I think the premise is quite clever. The kind of absurdism of it it sort of allows the movie to basically just get away with doing whatever it wants. But in a way, I think like the movie's very easygoing and it kind of works within that context. And, you know, you could say it is progressive if you wanted to have a political analysis and say that that's a good thing. It's not exactly dense with themes, but it warrants some credit for being the first movie to ever say that racism is bad and racists should be made fun of. With that said, I'm going to give this a high 7. That's what I was thinking of this movie. I think that's what it deserves, in my view, a high 7.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think an 8 out of 10 is worth it. And again, I give it that for being like historically significant, I think. You know, and that factors into it somewhat. But yeah, it is quite funny overall. You know, yeah, you have a good time. I can understand why people will say, it won't be made today, but again, that's just for like, you can remove a few lines and it would be absolutely fine. There would be no controversy in terms of, is this movie, you know, is this movie, you know, not fit? Is this movie not fitting in with the modern times because of the language? Again, it's just the language. You change a few lines, it's fine. And the core of the movie is, you know, very in keeping with modern comedy, making fun of racists, you know. So yeah, 8 out of 10, decently funny movie, yeah, and an enjoyable one. So what are we going to review next time, Michael?
We're going to be reviewing Varsity Blues, and I believe that's a slight jump forward in time because that's just its 30-year anniversary.
I think it's only 25, or is it 30?
Now I can't remember.
Well,
1999. Oh,
yeah, that doesn't sound like 30, does it, pal?
No, 25. Okay, yeah, 25-year anniversary.
Yeah, so join us next time for Varsity Blues. Yes, who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.